Welcome to our final week of our series. Hopefully we've learned a lot, we've grown, and we are seeking to be disciples, followers of Jesus, who are intentionally and relationally making disciples who make disciples. As we seek to be obedient to this call, as we seek to listen to Jesus and go and make disciples, as we seek to hear his voice and obey him, as we seek to soak all of this in, the devil is going to attack. You see, he doesn't want us to accomplish Jesus' game plan. He doesn't want us to be effective in sharing the gospel. He doesn't want us to be effective disciple makers. And so he's going to throw curveballs at us. He's going to try to do all that he can to stop us from being effective and listening to the call that Jesus has placed on our life. And so we need some protection. And Jesus knew that. He knew that we needed protection. And in Ephesians chapter 6, he gives the Apostle Paul the words that Paul writes to us, reminding us of the protection that God has given us so that we can stand firm, as the text says, against anything that the evil one is going to throw at us, anything that this world could throw at us. I want to read the text to you. Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 14. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. If you've been in the church for any period of time, you've probably heard about the armor of God. But too often we treat the armor of God like something that we are putting on, like something that we're using our own abilities to equip on ourselves. When we read that we're supposed to take the belt of truth, the belt of truth is meant to hold all the armor together, and we have this truth that we're putting on us. Sadly, we often find that our truths can get in the way of God's truth. And so when it's something that we're doing and we put this belt of truth on, if it's not God's truth, and if our truth or the world's truth is creeped in, the armor's not going to be effective. Same thing with the breastplate of righteousness. We act like there's this breastplate of righteousness that we need to physically put on, and that's wonderful. But if it's based on our righteousness and not the righteousness that God gives us, there's a problem. The Bible tells us that no one is righteous, not one on their own. And so if my righteousness creeps in, it's not going to be an effective breastplate. And as we go down this list, we see over and over again that if it's not equipped by Jesus, then it's not going to be effective. I love this passage. And when it tells us to stand firm with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, Jesus speaks truth only into our lives. The truth of Jesus can point out the sin that we have in our life so that we can free ourselves from it. The truth of Jesus is going to tell us who we are in him, not who the world tells us we are, or who our conscience tells us we are, or who our past tells us we are. The truth of Jesus tells us that we are children of the Most High God. We are heirs to his kingdom, and we are eternal beings that are living in the victorious nature of Jesus' kingdom. He tells us that we need to have the breastplate of righteousness in place. Just like we said earlier, no one is righteous. But through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, he paid the price for all the sin in my life. And the Bible tells us that the righteous live by faith. And the moment that I come to faith in Jesus, he imparts his righteousness on me. It's not something I do. Jesus declares that we are righteous. He is our intercessor between us and the Father. And so when the Father looks at us, he doesn't look at our sin. He looks at Jesus, who says, I paid for that. That person is righteous. When we put that on, it protects our heart. The breastplate is meant to protect our heart. Our hearts are fickle beings. We can be swayed by emotions. We can be swayed by circumstances. Many of us are still living in the guilt of sin from the past. Many of us are still living with those memories of things that have happened long ago, and they weigh us down. But the breastplate of righteousness declares to us that we have been redeemed and that Jesus has made us righteous. He then tells us, and have your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. Oh, this is where it gets to real discipleship. Having our feet fitted with the sandals that are the gospel of peace. When sin entered this world, we were no longer at peace with God. We were separated. The Bible tells us that we weren't just separated, because that's a very nice way of putting it. We were enemies of God, and there was no peace between mankind and God. But the good news of Jesus, the gospel of peace, tells us that Jesus stepped in and he made peace between us and God. And that's what the gospel does. And when we fit our feet with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace, we are ready to share that peace with this world. We understand what it was to be separated from God. And now we understand what it means to be at peace with him. And wouldn't we want to share the gospel that brings peace with others in this world? Finally, he also tells us to take up the shield of faith, which can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. If you think about a shield, what does a shield do? It protects. It stops the blows that are coming our way. And Jesus tells us that that's what our faith should do. We should use our faith as a shield. Like we've already talked about, the world is going to tell us lies about ourselves. The world is going to say that we aren't who Jesus declares us to be. The evil one, he wants to get us to believe those lies too. But when we trust in the faith that God has given to us, when we trust that through faith we are made righteous, not by anything I can do, not by anything I have done. I can't earn it. I can't obtain it on my own, but it's simply faith that brings me into this relationship with God and protects me. It doesn't matter what flaming arrow the evil one tries to stick in me. The shield of faith will always deflect it. He then tells us to take up the helmet of salvation. The helmet of salvation. Just like our hearts are fickle, our minds are pretty fickle too. And a helmet goes on your head to protect your mind. Salvation is something that is secured for us by Jesus. The moment we come to faith, we are saved. We become eternal beings. But the world and the evil one, he wants to get into our minds. He wants to tell us that, oh, Jesus didn't really save you. Jesus didn't really do that for you. Hey, remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? But knowing that my salvation was won by Jesus, that he adopted me into his kingdom, that protects us from all of those things that the world and the evil one is going to try to say. He then tells us to take up the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. This is our one and only weapon. All the other things are to protect us. Now we get a weapon. The more that we know the word of God, the more effective the sword of the Spirit is going to be. As we are disciples and as we disciple one another, what we see is that we become more acquainted with the Word of God. We know His voice and we put it into practice. And now we have a weapon so that when anybody comes our way and tries to attack us, we have protection. We can go back to the Word of God that speaks truth, that tells us of our righteousness, that tells us of our salvation, that tells us of the gospel of peace. And we can use it. Finally, the Apostle Paul tells us to pray in the Spirit on all occasions. Prayer is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. Sadly, in the church, we don't take it as seriously as we need to. When Jesus says pray, which He tells us to do in the Gospels, when the writers of the epistles tell us to pray, and when Paul says here, pray in the Spirit on all occasions, we need to take that seriously. We have access to the God of the universe, the one who created all things, the one who redeemed all things, the one who holds all things together. Why would we not want to talk to Him? Prayer is one of our most underutilized tools that God has given us. We need to take our concerns, we need to take our fears, we need to take it all to God. No matter what occasion it is, and no matter what kind of prayer or request it is, we need to have confidence as we approach the throne of grace, knowing that Jesus hears and responds. Now, here's a challenge in prayer. Jesus responds to all of our prayers. He doesn't always answer them the way that we want. And that's part of the learning process of hearing His voice and obeying it. No is an answer. It's not always the answer we like, but it is an answer. Have you noticed that in all these things, not one of the things that we have been given here as protection is something that we do? Jesus is the one who speaks the truth. Jesus is the one who makes us righteous. Jesus is the one who gives us faith. Jesus is the one who gives us the gospel of peace. He is the one who's won salvation. He is the one who speaks His word, the Spirit of truth, which gives us our sword. And He is the one who hears, receives, and answers our prayers. The armor isn't something that I'm putting on. It's something that Jesus is doing in my life. He is equipping these things more and more and more in me as I become deeper in my relationship with Him. The closer my discipleship is with Him, the more I'm going to trust these things, and the more protected I am going to be. And the more I help someone else in this process, the more protected they are going to be also. God has given us everything we need. And now we find out that He's even given us the protection we need, because He knows that being a disciple that makes disciples is hard. Yes, there's going to be challenges. And as we finish this up, we're going to have to come alongside one another. We're going to have to continue to encourage one another. We're going to have to remind each other of the protection that we've been given. But it's there. I'm so looking forward to this journey of being disciples who make disciples who make disciples. We often talk about transforming the world. I can't wait to see how God is going to use this small community called St. Timothy in exponential ways to make disciples.